If you know the way broadly, you will see it in everything. Recognized as one of the most skilled samurai of all time, Miyamoto Musashi claims to have won upwards of 60 duels by the age of 30. As a disciplined follower of Buddha, Musashi began studying the way of strategy from a young age, spending much of his adult life researching and developing the mind of a warrior. According to Musashi, by seeking to prove themselves or their lord, the warrior can attain power and fame through victory in war, and it is this virtue that differentiates them from the common man. Although much of his ideas relate directly to the violence of combat that drives one man to kill another, there is timeless knowledge within his philosophy. As an old saying goes, we must go through hell to get to heaven, and in Musashi's case, his sharpened skills and forged mentality from success in battle are where he derives his core principles. After years of experience and refined wisdom, Miyamoto Musashi decided to write down some of his most profound thoughts in the Book of Five Rings. The Book of Five Rings is composed of 5 main chapters: the Ground Book, the Water Book, the Fire Book, the Wind Book, and the Book of the Void. While I will not examine every detail, I will attempt to interpret the core ideas of Musashi's mentality that are applicable across all aspects of life. We begin at the Ground Book. Ground refers to theory, the path you attempt to follow, from the fundamentals to the smallest details. In any given field, there is often a theoretical best move or narrow way, as Musashi calls it, that distinguishes good from great from perfect. In general, Musashi claims that there are 4 ways or archetypes of man. Number 1, the way of the farmer. A man who focuses his efforts on a broad set of skills that usually leads him to become independent, like a farmer who must know everything required to sustain agriculture through each season of the year. The farmer is humble, does not seek fame, glory, power, or riches, but simply develops his character and aims to attain inner peace. Number 2, the way of the merchant. The businessman who makes a living by taking profit. A man who does not create from nothing, but rather locates the potential for profit and moves swiftly in pursuit of it. Number 3, the way of the warrior. This refers to a man of principle, a man who lives for the virtue of overcoming struggle in the pursuit of meaning. He aims to reach the pinnacle of a competitive ladder by continuously practicing his craft. Number 4, the way of the artisan. The visionary, the inventor, a man who seeks to transform. Whether for utility, beauty, or just curiosity, the artisan builds upon the old and current to create the new. Obviously, there are men who fall under none and men who may fall under more than one. These are simply the layouts for which any successful man can be categorized according to Musashi. In any case, it is valuable to become an expert, or as Musashi puts it, from one thing, know 10,000 things. The differences between men at the top of their fields become smaller and smaller. Thus, it is powerful to not only understand your profession, but to continuously examine and improve even the most minute imperfections. It is at the end of this chapter that we learn the way of Miyamoto Musashi, as he outlines. Number 1, do not think dishonestly. Number 2, the way is in training. Number 3, become acquainted with every art. Number 4, know the ways of all professions. Number 5, distinguish between gain and loss in worldly matters. Number 6, develop intuitive judgment and understanding for everything. Number 7, perceive those things which cannot be seen. Number 8, pay attention even to things that seem of little importance. Number 9, do nothing which is of no use. Not that they should be ignored, but besides 3 and 4, we can take all of Musashi's core pillars at face value and they would still apply today. With the ground laid where we've defined character, we now move into the Book of Water. One of water's most well understood characteristics is the fact that it adopts the shape of its container. Likewise, a master of his craft should be able to adapt to changing circumstances. No matter your field of interest, you cannot remain comfortable on the ground you know, for life often places you in uncharted territory. For this reason, one must learn to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. Musashi says, the spirit must remain calm in the chaos of battle, approaching all conflicts with settled emotions. In all industries, the higher the stakes, the greater the pressure, resulting in increased chances of making mistakes or being deceived. The solution that Musashi proposes is repetition and constant training. In Musashi's own words, "Today is victory over yourself of yesterday. Tomorrow is your victory over lesser men." Patience and endurance are required to achieve mastery that allows you to adapt to new challenges. Each day, you can make minor improvements that accumulate over time, but it is few men who can turn days into years. However, composure and flexibility are not enough on their own. We carry on to learn from the wisdom of fire. The spirit of fire is fierce, whether the fire be small or big. Regardless of the situation, fire burns all the same. Thus, you must learn to approach life in the same manner. On the battlefield, one must move without hesitation, no matter if he is fighting 10 or 10,000. In the greater context of life, we must approach any problem with the full force of our efforts, no matter its scale. Compromise is weakness. In other words, take pride in what you produce. How well you organize your room is how well you organize your finances, is how well you organize your time. The takeaway from fire is to maintain consistency, not only in day-to-day training, but in terms of the effort you showcase even for things you may deem of little importance. Another aspect of fire is what Miyamoto Musashi calls crossing at a ford, to take a calculated risk at the right time. The example he uses is setting sail even if everyone you know remains at harbor, given you understand favorable conditions. There come times in life when you are provided opportunities to propel you forward at the risk of failure, and it is up to us to identify when the choice is no longer a gamble, but rather a crossing at a ford. In essence, the idea of fire is to move with conviction, to express yourself in everything you do, and to take action when the time arises. Now, we take some lessons from the wind. Wind travels from ocean to ocean across the entire planet. Embracing the wind is increasing your perspective, having an open mind, and learning to evolve your thinking by becoming self-aware of your own ignorance. As Musashi puts it, it is difficult to know yourself if you do not know others. It is never wise to assume that you have nothing left to learn. By exploring beyond the horizon, one can more accurately determine the truth. Musashi understood this and seeked the knowledge of various schools to better determine the most effective form of combat and strategy. In similar fashion, anyone aiming to achieve mastery of their craft today should be willing to research ideas that may be unorthodox or not yet well established. By failing to challenge your understanding, you settle for less. Thus, the way of the wind is to appreciate new ideas without taking offense. While most of the information you receive on a day-to-day basis will be forgotten, you cannot attach your ego to your beliefs and ignore the light of new evidence and reasoning. With the wind at our backs, we move on to the final chapter of the book. The void is your invisible understanding, the way of nature. In some instances, you may think of it as your inherent intuition, when acting no longer requires thinking, or in others, you may call it entering flow state. It is when your internal clouds fade and your mind becomes clear. Thus, the only thing that remains is the void. The void is the most open-ended concept in the Book of Five Rings, as Musashi claims that it represents what is outside of man's knowledge. However, he asserts, by knowing things that exist, you can know that which does not exist. That is the void. He may be suggesting that by knowing the truth, you can spot a lie, but might he actually mean that by being so dialed into reality, you can tap into something greater? If the void refers to a sort of mental state where you reach your full potential, then this idea agrees with the rest of the chapter, as though it is the smallest, it is the most vague and intriguing. For example, Musashi begins by saying, "Of course the void is nothingness," while at the same time later saying, "Spirit is nothingness." Thus, by being so in tune with reality or nature, your true spirit is expressed. Many seek to escape reality, but this is simply failure to recognize that what you actually desire is to become more in touch with the truth. Through training, meditation, and overcoming adversity, you elevate your state of consciousness and realize peace with the universe. This is the way of the void, and that concludes the 5 chapters of the Book of Five Rings. In its entirety, the Book of Five Rings represents the amassed wisdom of an esteemed samurai warrior in 17th century Japan. Through the connections to ground, water, fire, wind, and the void, Miyamoto Musashi writes his philosophy of life in a manner that survives the test of time. I leave you only with this. the final words of the book. Then you will come to think of things in a wide sense and, taking the void as the way, you will see the way as void. In the void is virtue and no evil. Wisdom has existence, principle has existence, the way has existence. Spirit is nothingness. 12th day of the 5th month, 2nd year of Shoho.